So, hello everyone. We are delighted to see you this evening and to welcome you to a new talk. Our meetup for today is about using generative AI in R, capabilities and opportunities. And this talk will be hosted by Sharon Machlis, tech journalist and data professional. The next slide, please. Yes. I will start by introducing RLadies Paris, our local chapter of the global open source community RLadies Global. So RLadies Paris was founded in 2016, and our goals are to provide a supportive and encouraging network for our users and to promote learning and collaboration in the R community. So RLadies Paris serves as a vibrant community for our practitioners based in France. You can follow us on social networks if you haven't already did. We are very active on Meetup, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Mastodon. So feel free to scan these QR codes, please. Let me now talk about the RLadies Paris organizing team. I'm Shaima Boganmi, data scientist at Ipsos company in Paris. I'm also an organizer at RLadies Paris with Mona Belli, the data consultant and RLadies global team member. Who is today's invited speaker? Sharon Machlis. She's a long-time tech journalist. She's now mostly retired, although she still occasionally writes about generative AI and our InfoWorld. She has presented at a number of conferences, including keynoting the 2020 European R user meeting. Sharon gave a posit conf 2020-25 lightning talk in September. She's also the author of CRC Press Practical R for Mass Communication and Journalism in 2019. So welcome, Sharon, and again, thank you for accepting the invitation. So before we start, I have to remind you that we plan to record the session today. If you prefer not to be recorded, as Mona said, please turn off your video. If you have a comment, question, please leave a message in the chat box. And before you leave, please fill out the form and share with us your feedback. RLadies Paris is dedicated to be preventing a respectful, harassment-free community for everyone. You find our code of conduct here in GitHub. Let's keep making this place a welcoming and friendly community for everyone. Thank you for your attention, and Sharon, the floor is yours.
Okay, we tested sharing the screen, so let's see if it actually works, and it does. Super awesome. Okay.
Yes, it does. So sorry, I forget to ask you about the question. Did you want me to ask you the questions as they are coming along, or you will have access to directly to the chat?
I will stop periodically for questions, and then if you could ask, because I'm just afraid, since I'm sharing my whole screen, if I put the chat up, it's going to get confusing.
Okay.
No worries. Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, so yeah, good afternoon, Paris and Europe. Good morning, people on my side of the ocean. Thank you so much for coming. Bonjour à tous. A lot has happened in the past couple of years, both with generative AI and large language models, LLMs, and also with Gen AI and R. Things started off kind of slow a couple of years ago, but they have really picked up. So it's not easy to keep up. So my goal today is to give you a brief look at 3 ways you can use Gen A with R. Okay, there we go. Even that's working. Super awesome. Okay, so 3 uses. So we're going to talk about using LLMs to help you write your R code, helping us analyze data, and then adding LLM functionality to your R code and your apps to make cool things. But before we talk about all the fun things we can do, keep in mind, I'm sure most of you already know that you can't always trust these things. They are predictive systems. They work on probabilities. So that means they don't always give the same responses. You can ask it the same exact thing and get different responses each time. They answer based on what's probable to be correct. They don't know things. They seem like they know things, but they don't. And also, even though they can do things that are hard for us as humans, they can actually fail at tasks that are easy for us. So don't assume just because something is easy, like adding 3 plus 3, that it can like do it, because maybe it can, maybe it can't. So how do we deal with this, with the fact that these are not always trustworthy? So if something is important, I mean, if you're asking it to write a poem about something, who cares? But I mean, if something is important, you check their results and you keep a human in the loop. And we'll talk about that as we go on. So let's start with use number 1, helping us write our R code. So the super basic thing to do is you ask a chatbot like ChatGPT or Anthropic's Claude for help. You type in a question, maybe you copy and paste in your script you're working on and say, can you fix this? Or an error, can you fix this? And then it gives you an answer, and then you copy and paste or type its answers back into your R script, and you go along that way. So the advantages of doing that, you can do that for free, or if you have a subscription, it's included in your subscription. I think you can tend to learn more because you're watching it more. I think it's easy to ask the AI to explain the code, and you're not worried about using tokens and paying for that. But there are disadvantages. There are a lot of disadvantages. It is a slower workshop. Copy, paste, paste, copy, copy, paste. The results can be bad without context. So you can't just ask it like, fix my script. You have to like show it your script, copy and paste it in. If you're using a new package, it might not know about the package. You may have to tell it about the package. If you're using a package that's been updated recently, maybe it doesn't know about the updates. That can happen a lot when you're working with generative AI in your own code, because the packages are new and get updated very frequently. So giving it context can take time. So how can you give it context in a better way than copy, paste, copy, paste? There's something, if you haven't heard of it, called the BTWR package. BTW in English is an abbreviation for by the way, so I keep calling it that. And it's basically an easy way to copy and paste docs into a chatbot session. So I do have a lot of the code I'm using in my slides, and the slides are available on my GitHub repo. And also I had the link at the beginning. Oh, I need to show that again. So here is an example, and let me pop up, hopefully, this is Positron. If you haven't seen it, this is the new IDE from Posit, formerly RStudio. Posit is still supporting RStudio. RStudio is not going away, but this is kind of their new, more modern IDE. I love RStudio. It was really hard to tear myself away from RStudio for working with R, but when using generative AI, I actually like this better. I still use RStudio for some things, but when I'm working with Gen AI, I use this. So let's load. Let's hope this works. Let's load that package. I'm also going to load ggplot2 because almost all of us use that. Now, so if you want help about a function, let's say you want to find out about the themes function. You can, in R, you can do $themes. Oh my God, and do not do that. So helpful with these autocomplete. No, why is I think it's themes. Sorry about that. You could, oh, because that didn't work. All right, let's see. So that's themes. I think I want theme for ggplot2. Yes, sorry about that. You can tell I'm live coding. This is not recorded in advance. All right, so you get this whole help file here for theme, and when you use the question mark. And you could like copy and paste that. But by the way, you can actually just use the BTW function and then do the same thing. And if this works properly, oh my God, really? Let's see. All right. If you look at the bottom of the console, it says copied to the clipboard. And now this is all copied. So if I go to, let's say, a chatbot like Claude, and by the way, I'm using Claude because several experts, including a lot of the folks at Posit, seem to think that at least for now, the Claude models are kind of the best at writing R code. So, I mean, others are pretty good, but all right. So let's say I say, okay, I'd like to create a new ggplot2 theme using the Roboto font. Can you write that R code for me? Here is info about the theme function. And now you can't see, but I'm doing Control V or Command V in a Mac to paste that in. And if you look what I've got here, that was copied into my clipboard. And so it's a really easy way. I mean, in this case, it probably already knows about the theme, but this is kind of a fun way to make sure that you're giving it context. And it's going to write me my R code. It even gives me some example use. I actually have told you can, in some of these chatbots, you can give it system instructions for like everything. I added in my profile that I'm an intermediate R user and I like you to always explain your code. So it always explains its code, which I like because I don't want to just have this thing work for me. I want to know what it's doing. So, all right. So to save time, I'm not going to like run this, but you can see that the context helps. But this doesn't only work for functions, it also works for data, which is super nice. So I am going to actually copy this to save time. And I'm going to load in this data set. And we can look at it here. Sorry, my thumbnails are like in the way of my posit for me. Let me move this. All right. So we can see what this data set is. You can see it's for people who speak French. You can see the various column names. It's basically a data set of interesting places to go in Paris. But now if I do the BTW function with the data, oh, and look, this happens sometimes if I'm trying to do more than one thing. So let me restart my R session. All right, well, this isn't working right now. That happens sometimes. I don't feel like restarting my posit. But what would have happened is that it's copied to the clipboard. Let me see if I can just restart my positron. Positron can be a little, it's still kind of new. It could be a little flaky. But if this doesn't work, I can tell you that it used to work, that it would give you the, let's see, load the package, import the data. Yeah, all right. So what that's done, now if I go to Claude again, new chat, and say, please tell me about this data set. And I copy, and it did a whole thing here about the structure of the data. And now Claude will think, and it's giving us all sorts of information here. Okay. I am presenting to a group in Paris right now. Can you tell me this French and then go back to English? So for people who are like, well, is this going to work for me because I would rather work in French, it should. And it does. I like a lot. All right. So, but probably the more convenient and the way most power users do this is to use AI inside the IDE. So the advantages of that, it's much more convenient. It can read your files. Some of them can also even read your R session object, so you don't have to copy and paste about your data. It actually knows it. The disadvantages, if you're using a pay-for-use API, which some of these are, you need to watch your usage. You can, if you're playing for the whole day, you can run up some money. If you're using a subscription, you may bump up against usage limits. That used to happen with me a lot with Claude. I have the $20 US a month subscription. And I would regularly have to, it would say your usage is up. You have to wait another like 4 hours to use it again. And that was kind of annoying. I think they upped their limits because I run into that less. Okay. This is not a great experience, at least yet in RStudio. I've tried some of the things in RStudio and it's kind of terrible. That's why I moved to Positron when using these things. And always remember possible privacy concerns for sensitive work. I generally work with public data. For my hobby projects, I don't care. If you're in the medical fields, you need to make sure you're doing what you need to do for your workplace. And you may learn less if you just kind of let it write stuff for you without really asking for explanations and looking for the code. So within Positron, there are a number of different options. There is the Positron Assistant that's built into Positron. It's specifically designed for data science. It is pay for use only. So even if you have a subscription, you have to pay per use. Right now, it only supports Anthropic's Claude, although they are planning on doing other LLMs. You can use, Anthropic has its own extension, Claude Code, that works in Positron. You can either use the extension, which has a graphical user interface, or the terminal version. OpenAI has Codex, GitHub has Copilot. There are a lot of others. This is a slide from Tom Mock's presentation at R in Pharma about Positron Assistant. And what he's talking about is why he was saying Positron Assistant is different than a lot of the other ones, is it can talk with the IDE. This because it's designed for Positron only. It's aware of what your R session is. It's aware of your in-memory object, your data frames. Full data is not sent to the LLM, just the metadata. So the column headers and structures. The advantage of something like Claude Code is that Anthropic designed it and they know all the ins and outs of their LLMs. Okay, so I am going to see if we can live code. What could go wrong? I'm going to load another data set. I like RIO for loading, and I'm going to do data, UN, sample data. I'm going to load that, and then I am going to open Positron. So this Positron is in my little chat tab here. Most people have a little icon here on the way on the left here for the chat. For some reason, I have another extension that interferes with that, and it doesn't show up. But here it is. Okay, so I always like to greet my assistants. Okay, are you able to see the structure of the UN data frame in my R session? Let's see if it can. Don't fail me now. Okay, so it does it, and then you can ask it to do things like what R code for the median percent women's seats for locations. Hi, I didn't actually try this yet, so let's see if it does it. If not, there's something else that does it, but okay, it does. All right, so let us go back here. All right, so if you want, we don't have time to go in depth into any of these topics because there's so much to cover. Each one of these things could be an hour or two. But I have some resources in here for if you want to learn more about various things. So this is the link to Tom's presentation about Positron Assistant at R in Pharma. And there was a really sort of more wide-ranging discussion, presentation about AI in the Positron IDE at PositConf 2025. That is on YouTube, and you could watch that also. And as I mentioned before, it only supports Anthropic. for the chat, and actually it uses GitHub Copilot for inline code completion if you want that. So an Anthropic API key is needed. It's pay per use. I was playing with this, getting ready for this presentation. I ran up a bill for $4.30. I mean, I was using it much more heavily probably than I would have used it in regular work, but just keep that in mind. Take a look at your usage. But you can use other IDEs besides RStudio and Positron. Some of these were built for AI, although these were not necessarily optimized for R. So, I mean, something like VS Code Regular, I didn't put that in here, but you can use that too. But I feel like these all take a lot more work to set up for R than the posit ones. Cursor was kind of the original IDE that was built for AI native. Windsurf is also popular. The Z IDE, I've never used it, but I've seen on social media several R users saying it's great, so it might be. Brand new Google Anti-Gravity, just like last week, I think it was announced. It's supposed to be really good for AI. I downloaded it. I haven't really played with it that much. So that's that. Yeah, so before we move on to another section, are there any questions?
Yes, we have two questions. One from Leo. So it's about Claude. How to tell, I don't know if there is a way to tell Claude that you are an intermediate R user. I think you just leave a message in the box.
I'm sorry,
How did you tell Claude that you are an intermediate R user?
Yeah. So there's this, oh my God, you know, Zoom is just covering up all the things I want here. Hang on 1 second. Let me move my screen a little here. So if you've got settings here,
Okay.
so if you go to the general settings, I just put it here. What personal preferences should Claude consider in responses? I'm an intermediate R user who loves R. I like my code to be well documented. I want to understand the code that you're writing. It's as easy as that. Now, I don't know if you can do that with the free account, but maybe you can. Let's see.
Yeah. Okay, a second question about the positron assistant. What kind of AI model is used?
The positron assistant is using Anthropic's Claude, and so if you look at the bottom here, I don't know if you can see the bottom right, it says Claude. So you can pick from the different Claude models. So you can choose which one you want and how much you want to pay. You know, like Haiku is the smallest and cheapest one. Opus 4.5 is the best but super expensive one. I think for most of my work, I use the middle one, which is the latest Claude Sonnet.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So now let's look at an app to help us write ggplot2 code, and it's called ggBot2. It was demoed at PositConf as an experiment. Now you can actually run it yourself. I hope this works, but to demo this live really won't work because of the microphone and the feedback. It's talking in the speakers. It's kind of complicated. So I am going to see if I hope you can hear this. I'll put my volume up.
Hi, ggBot2. I'd like to visualize population change by division between 2010 and 2020. Any ideas?
Hey there. Absolutely. I've got some fun ideas to help you visualize that population change. How about a bar chart showing each division along the x-axis and the percentage change from 2010 to 2020 on the y-axis? We can even add labels on top of each bar to highlight the exact percentage. That way you'll get a super clear picture of how each division's population grew or shrank over that decade.
Let's sort from largest to smallest. Now, how about turning the bars steel color blue and get rid of the gray grid in the background? I think I'd like the labels inside the bars instead of above them and in white text. Can you make the x-axis text a little larger? And let's get rid of the y-axis label. Great, thanks ggBot2.
You're welcome. That updated plot should be showing now with the larger x-axis text and no y-axis label. Let me know if there's anything else you'd like to tweak.
Okay, so maybe I'm easily amused, but I just absolutely love this thing. And I can't really scroll down, but it's got all the code that it wrote here that you could just copy and paste and use. If you look here at the top left, it's actually showing how much your session cost. So that was 16.7 US cents. So I just love this thing. Oops, back here. So this actually uses a specific OpenAI API that uses voice. It's not just the regular LLM. It's something special. Joe Chang, who wrote most of this, said that API is specifically why they were able to write this thing. So you do need an OpenAI API key to run this. All right. So again, I can't get into all the details about this, but I wrote about this for InfoWorld. I've got the link here. If you want to find out more, you can download this thing and run it on your own computer, and I think it is super fun. So now let's go to use case 2, helping you analyze data. And Posit has written something called DataBot, which it is a standalone thing, but not really that great standalone. They really designed it to be part of Positron. And I'd like to run a little bit, oh my God, with the, sorry, but Zoom keeps covering up what I need here. Let's see. I'd like to run a little bit of Joe's video at Positron because I think obviously he wrote it, he explains it well.
I'm really excited to talk to you about DataBot. DataBot, our exploratory data analysis agent. This is one of the most fascinating and useful pieces of software I've ever worked on in my career. So just let me start off by giving you a quick taste of what it's like to use DataBot, and then we'll zoom out a little bit and talk about why it works this way. Full disclosure, this playback is at 1.5x speed, just in the interest of time. So you open DataBot with a command, and then you ask it, often starting with a very general question like, please load this restaurant data. I'm using the same restaurant data that Hadley showed in his Shiny dashboard. So it's writing some Python code that I can review. I'm going to YOLO and say allow always. You can see the output of that code, and then it looks at the output of the code itself and makes some observations here in prose. And then finally, it provides 5 links of suggestions of next steps that we could do together. So let's just talk about this for a second. I've been calling this the where loop. So far, I'm the only one who's been calling it the where loop. Even inside the company, this is not catching on. They're not all winners. So it starts with you asking a question or providing an instruction. DataBot will respond to that instruction or question by first writing Python or R code, depending on what kind of session you're using. Secondly, it will go ahead and execute the code for you once you click allow. Third, and very importantly, it sees the output. The human sees the output and the machine sees the output. And you look at it together, and this output can include a console output, it can include data frames, and it can include plots. So it makes whatever observations it wants to make about that data that it thinks you should know. And then it repeats. So if there are additional steps it wants to take in order to try to answer your question or follow your instruction, it will do that up to 3 to 5 times, and then we tell it to stop. And this is a really important point, that we have finely tuned the granularity of this human-machine feedback loop to what we think is appropriate for exploratory data analysis. It can go off and do enough work that your exploration can proceed very quickly, but in small enough chunks that the human is not left behind and like can't keep up with the like quote unquote insights being thrown off by the machine. After it's done that, then it comes back to the user, suggests next steps. It always suggests here 3 to 5 things that we can do next. So you're never left at a blank prompt just thinking like, what now? And then it waits for your instruction. So you can click one of the links that it provides, or you can type in your own instruction. And you just do this again and again until you're done exploring your data. Finally, once you have all the answers that you're looking for, you probably have a giant chat transcript, which is not useful to anybody. So there is an explicit set of commands in DataBot to extract out the important insights, and you tell it what you think are the important insights, and it will create a reproducible version of your chat that just limits it to the code and prose that are necessary to get your point across. So let's look again at this example.
So that is DataBot. And you know, you could do all this yourself with the LLM. The advantage of DataBot is that there are specialists at Posit who have worked really hard to understand how to best use these things for data analysis. You know, it seems like using a chatbot should be pretty easy. You just type in questions, but you know, using them well is a skill, and those skills change over time. And I think the advantage of DataBot is that someone did a lot of work to see how to best use these for data analysis. All right, so again, I'm going to try to do this live. All right, so I'm opening the command palette, which is Control-Shift-P or Command-Shift-P on a Mac. And as you can see, so I'm going to do Open DataBot. And okay, so I'm going to say, let's see, I'd like you to take a look at the UN, oops, sorry, at the UN data set. Okay, give me a brief summary of it and some ideas on how to analyze and visualize it. You know, and each time you do this, it will answer differently. So I can't count on the fact that it will do what it did before, which is really cool. All right, so it doesn't just go off and run code without your permission. You can say allow once, and then each time it has code, you have to say yes, 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 yes. Allow always is allow always for this session, not like until the end of time. So I'm letting it run code. It loaded the tidyverse. It's looking ahead. It's using dplyr glimpse. And now it's giving me the brief summary. It's the same one we got before. Okay, so here are some interesting ways to explore this data set. Comparative analysis, economic relationship, regional patterns. Oh, regional patterns. That sounds interesting. So you click on that, I'm pointing like you can see. It pops into this area to put in your queries. And let's see what it does. And there we are. So that's pretty cool. The last time I did this yesterday, it gave me a map. So can you give me a country map? I did it last time. We'll see if it does the map this time. And again, last time it suggested it, but each time you do it, it's different. Yeah, so it did. I mean, and now you can see, as Joe said, it's giving you some additional ideas on what to do with the map. So I could play with this all day, but we have other things to talk about. But this is super fun. This is using my OpenAI API key, which is less expensive to use than Claude, but it still is using money. You can then go to the website where your API information is at OpenAI and see how much you're using. This is not really that much. I think, yeah, somewhere here, the very bottom right, this little thing shows you some of the tokens you're using, but not the actual money. And this is, I think, for the positron assistant. This is actually not for DataBot. So I think there might be a way to see how much you're using, but I don't remember. Sorry. All right. Okay, so that is DataBot. This does not come with positron like positron assistant. You have to install it and acknowledge that the terms of use. So I've got a link to the installation instructions here if you're interested. Okay, let me stop before we go on to use case 3 to see if there are any questions.
So thank you. I can see questions in the chat. Don't hesitate to leave your question in the chat. Yeah. So for now, no, we don't have questions.
Okay. Great. I hope everyone's still awake out there. Let's go to use case 3, which is also super fun, which is adding chatbots to your own apps and code. So one thing I really like, this is also a POSIT project, it's called Query Chat, which lets you ask natural language questions about your data. So to use this well, you include a description of the columns in your data, so it really knows what they are instead of just guessing, and also some sample questions. Then once you do that, you can ask natural language questions about your data. What happens with Query Chat is it translates those natural language questions into SQL, into SQL, not into R, but into SQL. And the reason it's SQL is because there's a lot more SQL code out there than R code. So there's a lot more training data for these large language models on SQL than R. So they're better at SQL than R, and you're more likely to get correct code. You can then check that SQL. I mean, even if you don't normally use SQL, chances are that if you know how to code, you can kind of have a rough idea of what it's doing. And then it runs the SQL on your data. So on your system, but it never sees your actual data. It just sees the metadata. And Joe Chang did a sample shiny dashboard with this thing, which is here. Okay, so let us reload this and hopefully it's working. Okay, so this is a shiny dashboard, but instead of sliders and checkboxes saying I only want women, I only want lunch, it's got this chatbot here, and you can see it has instructions. This is the greeting, and it's got some ideas on how to filter. Now you could do a lot of this filtering with typical shiny inputs. The great thing about this is you don't have to anticipate what people are asking. Maybe they're going to ask something that you didn't think to have a slider for. This can be anything. And it's also really nice too. So let's see. So, all right. So let's just show women tippers. And now if we do that, you see it automatically filtered it, and you can see the code. So you can check it. This is human in the loop. You can check it. Are you happy with this? Yes. Select everything from tips where sex equals female. That's what we want. And then everything automatically updates. All right. But in addition to filtering, it can also answer questions. So tell me tell me the median percent tip for women by time. And then that's not going to filter the table. That's going to actually tell you the answer here on the left. So it's showing 16, okay, women tippers have a median tip of, and then you can see what it did. And there should be somewhere, I think we can just say reset, and the thing resets the whole, resets the whole thing. And you can, there's a lot of things you can do, show me median tip by sex, and we'll see that women tip better than men. Oh, sorry, that not the, I meant show me median percent tip by sex is what I wanted. Well, not that different. All right, anyway, so that's that. But it's really easy to do this yourself with query chat. So query chat, and then there's the three packages I'm going to be using a lot from here on. It's query chat, which is this. There's Elmer, which is the tidyverse standard way of connecting to large language models with R. There are other options. And then there's Ragnar, which is for RAG, which I'll be doing here. It's starting to get late. So instead of retyping all this, I'm going to actually just copy it and paste it in so we don't spend time watching me type. Okay. So I'm loading query chat. I'm importing the data. And now, remember I said you want to describe the columns and you want to also give it a greeting and sample. So this is what the data dictionary looks like. It's very, very simple. It's just anything that's human readable. I have the column names and what they are. Super simple. Here is my sample greeting. This actually for the sample questions in order to make them clickable. You've got the span class equal suggestion close span. That's really all that is. All right, so we're going to run this code. And what I've done here is create a query chat configuration object using the query chat underscore init function. All right, and now, whoops, sorry about that. Let's go back to posit. And then what I want to do here is you can actually run an app. Like this includes a query chat app function. And the argument is just this query chat config object that I just created. And if you do that, you actually get a whole app that'll do this for our UN data. What is the median percent of women in national parliaments? And you can build on that to make something more impressive, like Joe's dashboard with the plots and graphics and others. But this can get you started to ask natural language questions of your own data, which I think is also super cool. So next I want to go to RAG, retrieval augmented generation, which I am completely obsessed with. I've written a lot of apps with this. What this is a way to ask natural language questions, not over numerical data, but a lot of text data. So let's say you want to ask questions about a lot of newspaper articles. Maybe you have 100 years of newspaper articles. You can't like stuff all those newspaper articles into your query because they're just too big. So this is a way to have the large language model answer questions about text data that is too large for it and something that it's not necessarily going to know itself. So why RAG? As I said, maybe your data is too big to fit into an LLM context window. Or maybe the data does fit, but that can get expensive and slow. And also when you start stuffing to the maximum of your context window, sometimes they don't perform as well as they do with smaller queries. So RAG stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation. So retrieval means you retrieve chunks of your text that are most similar to the user's query. Then you take those chunks that are closest to what the user wants to know, and you send them as context along with your question. And then the LLM uses that to generate its response. So let's say you have 100 years of newspaper articles and you want to ask a question. What's happening with bicycle paths in Paris? So what you would do is search for the text chunks in articles that have to do with that topic, and then you take them all, you send the query to the LLM and say, and then use these text chunks to answer the question, and then it answers the question. So the steps: you split your text into smaller chunks, usually, unless you already have small chunks of text. You add embeddings. These are lengthy numerical strings that represent a text semantic meaning to each chunk, and a large language model is doing the embeddings as well. That's, by the way, a lot cheaper than the regular LLM use. You save the chunks with the embeddings, the text and the embeddings, in a database. Then when someone asks a question, you create those embeddings for the query also, and then you're using some kind of algebraic math to retrieve the chunks that are most semantically similar based on those embeddings, and then you send the query and the chunks to the LLM to answer the question. That is a huge topic that I can't really go into, but if you are interested in this, I wrote about it for InfoWorld on how to use the Ragnar package, which is an R package. I was just so super happy to see that finally there was a package to do RAG in R. I also did a 2-hour workshop for Ukraine on RAG with Ragnar and R. The author of the package was kind enough to help me with this, so it's actually correct because it changed right around when I wrote this article. That is for a €20 donation to help Ukraine. You can get access to the video and the code materials for that. There's still more you can do, obviously, in R with LLMs. As I said, Elmer is the main tidyverse package, but there are others. You can extract structured data from a text blob with R. You can give it tools, which are basically just R functions, and have the LLM decide when to use the tools. I've got links here to the Elmer articles explaining those. Very briefly, for extracting structured data, what we have, so I mean, basically what you're doing here is you're creating an object type here, and you're saying what you want it to look like. So I'm going to copy this. And here what I have is, okay, go away here. Let's get rid of this. And all right, we need to wrap the text, toggle word wrap. Okay, so I just took a couple of social media posts from various RLadies accounts talking about some upcoming events, although they're not upcoming anymore, but most of them. And let's say I would like to turn this into structured data. I want the date, the speaker, and the topic. So I'm going to load Elmer, and here is my type object I have here. I want the date. There's not a type date. I don't know why. I guess because large language models don't understand our date object. So I'm saying a type string in year, month, date format. Oh my God, let's make sure that we can see this. And if the year isn't mentioned, which it almost never is, do a date that makes most sense relative to today's date of, and then I give it today's date because a chatbot probably knows what date it is if you're using like chatgpt.com or claude.ai. But if you're coding with the API with the raw LLM, it probably doesn't know the date, so you need to tell it. I want the speaker name, a string, description, brief description. Okay, so we've done that. And then let me copy this because we are so running out of time. Sorry. All right, so this is the text. So it's just basically the text I just loaded in. Here's my prompt, extract the data for each workshop mentioned in the text below. And then I'm creating a chat object. Okay, so Elmer can use many, many different providers, many, many different models. So I've decided to use chat_OpenAI. There's chat_Anthropic, there's Gemini, there's all sorts of ones. That you can use local language, you can use local ones on your system with a llama if you use that. I'm setting the model as 4.1, the system prompt, the prompt I just made here. So this is my chat object. And that chat objects have a whole bunch of methods. There's a regular chat, there's chat structure, there's all sorts of things. So I'm using chat structured. I'm giving it the text of the RLadies thing, and I'm saying I want you to extract this, an array with this format that I just gave you. And I'm going to do that. It's going to think a little bit. And now we can see what we got. Actually, probably looking here would be better. So we've got the dates. There's no date here, sad story. That's an error. Most of the time I've done this, it's been correct, but you know, every time you do it, you get something different. This speaker name empty is correct because they didn't mention a speaker, and then the descriptions, but you can see it did get the year right. We did get today's thing. So, and you know, I could try a better model. If 4.1 isn't good enough, there's all sorts of things you can do. So that's really helpful. And then, whoa, we got 3 more minutes. Tool calling. Okay, why do you need tool calling? Because sometimes, as I said, LLMs, something that could be easy for us can be hard for it. So I'm going to, okay. All right, I'm going to make a new chat. This is just a regular chat, not a chat structure. And I'm going to say how many days are left in this year. And if you look, it thinks today is June 30th, 2024, because that must have been the model's cutoff date. So that is not really helpful. But we can give it tools. So, and tools are just R functions packaged in a certain way so LLMs can use them. And basically you give the LLM a tool and you say you can use this tool if someone asks a question about such and such, and then it knows. So you start with conventional R function. I made 2 functions here. One is days left in year and just regular R thing. And the other one is get current date, which you might be saying, why would I need to do that? There's already sys.date. The reason is because in this whole tool chain ecosystem, you can't have a dot in the function name. So I just am just renaming the function. But you can see this function works. And this function works. And then to turn it into a tool, you use the Elmer tool function, and you give it the name of your R function. You give it a name, which is just the same as the R function. The description is very important because this is what the LLM uses to decide whether or not it's going to use this tool. And then the arguments here, the current date as a string, and you explain what it is. Because the LLM is also deciding what arguments, if it needs arguments to send to. And what it's doing, it's not actually running the code itself. It's sort of asking your system to run it for it rather, and then sending the information back. And then the current date tool, same thing, tool, get current date, name, and this is pretty obvious. Okay, so we are going to pop that in here. So I'm creating my, no, I'm trying to rush, sorry. All right, and now the last part of this is to register the tool with your chat object so your chat object knows about the tool. So I already made my chat object before I'm registering both tools. And now look what happens. Watch the bottom here. It's calling the tool to get the current date. It's calling the tool to get how many days left. And there are 32 days left in this year. So, but it's not going to always use the tool. It only uses the tool if it needs it. What is the capital of France? It's not going to need the tool. So see, even though it has the tool, it's not using it. So tool calling is really awesome. And as I said, I have the link to the article about that. So that is actually all I have planned here. I have a lot of additional resources in here for you. This was a great talk. Hadley Wickham, the chief scientist, posit, gave a keynote at the USAR conference this summer. His No Bullshit Guide to LLMs, really worth a watch. Joe Chang talked about harnessing LLMs for data analysis specifically. Also useful if you're interested in that. Hadley did a workshop for Ukraine for a 20 euro donation. You can hear him talk about how to use LLMs with the Elmer package, which he is one of the chief authors of. There are other R packages for using LLMs with R. Vitals is for evaluating the results of LLMs in a sort of structured way. This mini 007, if you know about agents and orchestrating agents, this is a way to do it in R, similar to Python's Crew AI. This one, which I don't know how to say, Axolot R. It's an alternative to Elmore for using LMs and R if you don't want to be locked into posit in the tidyverse. Chores, I've never used this package, but it's a way to help automate repetitive tasks using AI. And for you RStudio lovers, there is a highly experimental package for a coding agent. In RStudio, I haven't used it, but if you want to play with that, there it is. Some conference videos, PositConf. There are over 100 videos in the playlist. Obviously, not all of them are about AI and R, but if you want to scroll through that, there were a bunch of AI-related talks. There was the R plus AI conference a few weeks ago. I don't know if those videos are going to be up there indefinitely. Not all the talks are up there, but some of them are if you are interested. And that's it.
Thank you very much. That was really interesting. So you have one question in the chat from Gina. So he's curious about what guides you in deciding what new tools to check out and spend time with, like in the artificial intelligence space.
Yeah, it's a really hard field to keep up with. I look at social media a lot, and conferences are really the two things. I mean, not everyone can attend conferences, even if they're virtual. If you work full time and this isn't your job. I mean, even when I was working full time, this was my job. I mean, I wrote about this, so I was able to, take 2 or 3 days of my work day and go to these conferences. But I would say, social media, and even if you can't attend the conferences, to look at the videos afterwards.
Perfect. Do you have any other questions? So is it possible to share with us the link for the slides so you can get access to the links and the videos you shared?
Yes, let me do that. It was right at the
Thank you.
beginning. And so if you see, it's there's a GitHub repository, which has the slides. And
Okay.
am I still sharing? I think I am. But let's put this in the chat too.
Perfect.
I think I'm going to stop sharing well.
So,
all right. So the links are I'm going to stop sharing so we can.
Thank you everyone for attending our meetup. I don't know if you have any other questions. So you'll make
Thank you, Sharon.
Yeah. Thank you very much. So we make sure to share the recording video on our YouTube channel later. It should be by tomorrow available there.
Yes.
Oh, great. Yeah. Thanks, everyone. I know it's getting towards dinner time over there, so I don't want to keep people too much longer, but we still have the
No,
whole
it's
day.
okay. Okay, that was interesting. Thank you. Well,
Thank you,
goodbye.
everyone. Goodbye.
Thanks all.
Bye.
Bye.